So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout South Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Before we start going through this session, I just wanted to make sure that everyone's familiar with navigating through Teams. Hopefully by now everyone is, but this is just a quick reminder in case people aren't. So firstly, this slide here shows some screenshots from the desktop app. So if you're joining us in the web app, it's going to look a little bit different. You should see at the top right hand of your screen, there's some icons. So the first one is participants. So if you click on that, you'll be able to see everyone that's in this meeting. The next one is chat. So that's that text bubble. So if you click on that, you'll already see that I've put a couple of files into the chat. Please note that the chat you'll be able to access after the meeting as well. So don't stress if you don't click on something or don't download something as we're going. The next one is reactions. So if you hover over that icon, you should see a whole lot of different reactions you can give. So if you could give me a thumbs up if you're seeing that, that would be helpful. Perfect, we've got some people listening and following along. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Did you have a question, Sadiq? No. Now the next one in that screenshot, you probably can't see, that's the symbol for the breakout room. So that only appears on the person who's organised the meeting. So I've just included it there because if you're planning to hold meetings, for example, with your class, that's what that icon's for. And then the next one across is more meeting options. So that one's handy to know about as well if you're running meetings. And then if we move right across, we've got the turn on your camera, speaker, and that one there is the share your screen. The other one I point out on this slide is that leave. So if you're running a class meeting, for example, you might not want your students in the meeting after you leave. So instead of just clicking on leave, if you click on that arrow next to it, you can actually end the meeting and that will kick everyone out of the meeting. I'm going to go now to the web version. So if you're joining us today in the web version, your icons are going to look slightly different and you don't have all the capability that the desktop version has. So if you're on the web version, your icons will appear down the bottom of your screen. You've got the same share your screen. Instead of all the reactions, you've only got the hand up. You've got your chat, and then you've got the participants as well. Again, those three dots gives you a bit more, some more possibilities of how you want to see the screen. So for example, you could change the view from gallery to large. Okay, Duke, you've still got your hand up. If you want to come off mute, you're welcome to ask a question. Otherwise, if you click on that hand symbol and put it down if you don't have a question. Okay, I might just mute you and we might come back in case you've got a question afterwards. Just while we're on questions, if you do have a question throughout this tutorial or webinar, please don't hesitate to come off mute and ask away. The first bit of this presentation, I'm going to move fairly fast to give you an overview of some of the apps that are available through Microsoft 365. So this first bit isn't intended for you to follow along. However, once I've gone through the different apps and some of the ways you might use them in the classroom with your students, I am going to slow down so that we can do some work together in the second bit of the presentation. So one thing you might want to consider, especially if you're working with just one screen, is if you want to see the presentation and view the app that you're working with on the same screen, a handy tip is if you press the Windows key, if you're working on a Windows machine, and then either the left or the right arrow, that will split your screen. So that's just something to remember if you're trying to watch a presentation and work through something on your screen at the same time. Okay, these links I'll go through as I'm talking about the apps, but if you want to download a copy of this presentation, those links are in there as well. The other thing I'll mention is I've already put as well the training summary. So I did email this out to people, but if you haven't downloaded it yet, it's there in the chat as well. Right. So I'm going to stop sharing this presentation, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. And let's get stuck in. Okay, so you should be able to see my browser now. If you haven't got any of the Microsoft 365 apps downloaded on your computer, you can access them all from office.com. So you can type in www.office.com. I'll just put that link into the chat for you. And then you can sign in with your school's email address. So students and teachers and any staff that work at the department can all sign in through office.com. If you are a staff member, you can download up to 5 copies. So you might see this install Office button. So you can download up to 5 copies, which can be handy because you could have them on your personal computer or your mobile phone, for example. With your subscription, that gives you access to 1 terabyte of data. Just note that if you leave the department, you'll have to transfer all your files from Office 365 to a personal Office account within 30 days of leaving the department. I do believe TRTs don't have access to install Office either, but they can access Office on the web. Okay, so I'm going to click on this little symbol down the bottom here, and that shows me all the apps available in Office 365. So some of them are quite similar to what you might be using already. We've got Outlook, we've got Word, PowerPoint, Excel. Some of those apps you'll already be familiar with. I'm just going to put into the chat again some links. Now these are links to our YouTube channel that has a range of tutorials, but some are quite short that you can work through. So if you want any extra support with any of those apps there, feel free to click on those links. I'm not going to go through those in much detail today. I'm just going to talk about some of the apps that we see specifically used in teaching. So the first one I'm going to look at is Onenote. So Onenote is like an online notebook, and you can use it with your students, or you can use it for a personal notebook. So for example, this one here is my personal notebook where I keep all my files to do with the work that I'm working on at the moment. And you can see here, it's just like a traditional notebook with tabs, and then I've got a range of different pages as well. So that's OneNote. Just going to go back again. That all apps. In that handout, there's a couple of examples of OneNotes and how you might use them in teaching. So, for example, you might use it as a whole staff. Let me just sign in. Oops.
She's got her hand up. Put your hand down, love. Is it me? No.
It's not me. I hope am I muted?
You aren't muted, but I can mute you now. Apologies for this. All right, let's try again. Okay, so this is an example of how you might use OneNote to keep your staff meeting minutes. This page here, links. So when I click on that link, it takes me to that week. So that's quite handy to sort through your different staff meetings. And you can also search OneNote as well. So there's a search function there. Okay. The other example I might show you is a teaching example. So I won't go into too much detail with this today because I've got another session coming up on this. But this is an example of a teaching workbook that you might use with your class. And in here you can see I've got some students, and then I've got some spaces where I can put in content as a teacher that the students can't access, and different spaces for adding teaching and content and for students to collaborate as well. So that's very briefly OneNote. Let's go back to all apps. Okay. Now the next one we have a look at is Sway. So Sway is only an online app. You can't download it to your desktop. And it's a program that you can use to make presentations, or students can use as well. One of the good things about Sway is you can actually share it with people outside of the department. So you can share it with parents, for example, or students can share the presentations they've made with other family members. So I'll just show you some examples of Sway as well. And I'll just put a link in the chat as well. Okay. So the first one here is Wakefield Primary School's newsletter. So you can see it's quite nicely designed, and this is all really easy to do from a template. One of the nice features of Sway as well, if I go down to the bottom, is you can embed things called a stack. So here at the end, I've got lots of community notices, and instead of the newsletter being very, very long, parents can simply click through the different ads. The other nice thing is you can insert surveys as well into Sway. And Sway is something called responsive. So that means if a parent is viewing it on their phone, for example, the text and the screen will change as their screen changes. So that makes it really easy for parents to read. The other nice thing about Sway is that it gives you some analytics. So if I go in here, these are some sways that I've edited or made, and I can see how many people have used this one, for example. So 343 people have read it in depth. So if you do use Sway for newsletters, for example, you can see how many people are looking at the newsletter and how many people are actually going through and reading it as opposed to just opening it and closing it. I've got another example here. So this is a high school, Banksia Park International High, who's also using Sway for their newsletters. You can see they've used the same layout. And then this one here is an example of a staff presentation. Oops, it's frozen for some reason. Let's give it a go again. So this is an example of a staff presentation. And so you can see it's easy to embed videos. And if I go right to the end of this one, you can see it's already given me a whole list of resources that I've embedded within this way. So it automatically gives you like a bibliography. One more thing I will point out with Sway is it does have a really nice feature that you could use with students, and that's the start from topic. So if I click on start from topic, does someone just want to come out off mute and give me something that students might be writing about? Anyone brave enough to shout out a word or put it in the chat?
Minecraft.
Minecraft. Let's see what happens if we put in Minecraft. See whether it will work. Okay, so if you use this with students, it already gives them a bit of a scaffold to help them with their writing. So here it's taken some text that they could read and then write in their own. It already, again, puts in a bibliography. In this case, it looks like it's only got one website that it's referenced. And if I go to play, you'll see it's already made it look quite nice. Now this one hasn't put any pictures in. I'll just go back to this one, for example. So in this, so that's something you could use with students. Okay, any questions so far? Feel free to come off mute at any time if you have some questions. Okay, I'm just going to go back to all apps again, and I will move on to the next one, which is Forms. So Forms is a bit like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms if you've used either of those. This one as well is only available on the web, so you can't get it as a downloaded app. You can create a quiz or you can create a form. So I've got some examples here again. So this one here is an example of, just refresh, an example of a formative test. And this one here, want me to refresh? Let's try again. This one here's got something called branching. So when the teachers created it, they've put in a different pathway depending on what the student answers. So if the student answers this first one correct, they move to the next one straight away. However, if they put in the wrong answer, the teachers put in some help for them. So that's a really good way for you to differentiate your learning for students that need that extra support. Here's another example with forms. So like Sway, forms can also be shared with people outside of the department. So this one here is an example of a registration form that you might send out to parents, or you could send out a form asking about their capacity for online learning or something like that. You'll notice there's some red stars. These are required questions that have been built into the form, and then the parent can submit. This one's another example I've got. So this is what it looks like when you're actually building the form. So this is a reading comprehension. I've put in the text, and then I've put in some of the questions. Now I've created this as a quiz. So you can see there's some ticks next to the different responses. That's because that's the correct response. And when the student submits that, that's going to be self-marking for those responses. Notice these two here. They're short answer questions, so it's not going to, I can't put it in a response because students could answer anything. And when the student sees it, that's what it will look like for them. This one here, you see it's got Hi Abigail, that's my name. That's because this form is not anonymous. So whenever you receive a form from Microsoft and it's got your name there, even if the person has said it's an anonymous form, it's not. As soon as you see your name, that means that Microsoft knows your email address and who you are, and the person that has authored the form or created the form will get that detail. So that's just something to note. Another example of how you might use it might be student representative voting. Again, for this one, I might share it as an anonymous form, so that you can tell who voted for who. But again, forms are responsive, so it will change, and you can see it looks nice if it's viewed on a mobile phone as opposed to the computer view. And again, this one's branching, so I've set it up that if the kids in this team, they only see the house captains for that team, for example. The last one, this is a registration form for some training that my team's ran. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like as a teacher or someone that's created the form. So if I click on the responses, I get some really quick data. So how many people have completed it, how long it took. I get some nice word clouds, and I get some nice graphs. So this one here is only 2 questions. It's given me a nice pie chart. A bit further along, where there's a question with more options, it's given me a pie chart as well there. And this is in real time as well. So if someone was to fill this form out right now, I'd see a change in what data is on display. I can also get that in an Excel spreadsheet as well if I wanted to use that. So that's an easy way for you to collect data about your students. For example, if you wanted to create a quick about you form, you could do that and send that link to students at the beginning of the year as well. Okay, any questions on forms? Can people give me a thumbs up if they're still following along okay with the reactions? That's good, a few people are, so that's good. Okay. I'm going to skip Teams for the moment and just show you Whiteboard and Stream before we move back into Teams, and I hopefully get you to do some stuff. So Whiteboard here is Microsoft's online whiteboard. It's got a whole range of inbuilt things that you can add in. You can also share it. So again, that's a great way of sharing something for all your students to add to or your staff. You can also embed a whiteboard in a team, or you can share it in the Teams meeting as well. So Whiteboard's really handy. It does have an ink-in tool. So if I don't have Whiteboard open. Let me just open the desktop version of Whiteboard. It's a little bit different. You can see some of my messy writing as well. But you could see you could use this on your interactive whiteboard, or if you have a tablet as well. There's an inking function with lots of different pens. Okay, and then the last one I wanted to mention is Stream. So Stream is Microsoft's version of YouTube. Anything you post to Stream, though, will only be accessible with people with an @schools email address. So your students or other adults employed by the Department for Education. You can see here some people have made their videos public. That means that any teacher or any student or anyone with a @schools learning account can actually look at those. So I'm just going to go into my content for a moment and just show you. These ones here that have got the yellow person, those ones I know are private. But you can see down here, there's a couple that I've got a green that I've shared with other people. So just be wary that if you are sharing, you can choose who to share with, but just be wary that if you share for the department, that includes students as well. Okay, so we're going to get out of the browser and move into Teams. I'll just give you the link for our YouTube channel on Teams as well before I bring up Teams on my computer. Okay, and I might actually try and do a poll at this point so that I make sure that people aren't falling asleep. This first question is, will you be using Teams for class meetings? So hopefully you've got a pop-up on your screen, and if you can just click on yes, no, or maybe for that first question. And submit. Okay, so lots of people will be using it for class meetings, and a couple of people not sure, and a few people not. Okay, second question, will you be using Teams as a learning management system? So again, if you could submit that one, that would be great. By that I mean to share student work and those kinds of things. Okay, so quite a few people undecided still. I'm not going to go too much into the class side of Teams today. I will show you a bit about what it looks like, but I am running another session which is more hands-on around class Teams tomorrow, so feel free to join that one. This one today, I'm just going to go through some of the tips around using it more to share with your colleagues, but we might, depending on time, have a look at setting up class meetings as well. Okay, so just quickly, hopefully everyone's more or less familiar with Teams because we've been forced to use it, but I'll briefly go through the layout as well. So up the top, we've got activity. So that's like your Facebook feed. Then you've got your chat. So after today's meeting has finished as well, here it is. That's where you can find all the links that I've posted in your chat. Your Teams will have all the teams that you belong to. So I belong to lots of teams. I've got lots on my screen. You might only have a few. And because we're using the education version of Teams, we've got this icon called assignments. So if you created a class team, you'll see assignments, and then all the assignments you post to whatever team you post them to will all pop up there. So here you can see I've got 3 different teams with assignments in there. And then you've got your calendar. So if you use Teams or Outlook to set up meetings, they appear in there. Calls. Now, unfortunately, we can't call, well, for safety reasons, we can't call or chat with students. It's only adults within the department, but you can contact any of your colleagues. So if you're missing those staff room chats, you can try Teams to call them or send them a message in chats. Okay, let's go back to Teams. Now for this bit, I'm hoping that you guys can kind of follow along. So at the very beginning, I mentioned that tip about sharing your screen. So if you press the Windows key and either the left or the right arrow, that will make your screen divided in half, and then you can choose the team meeting on one side and Teams, if you've got it in your desktop, on the other. I'm just going to make mine full screen though, so that you guys can see my screen better. Okay, can people give me a thumbs up using the reactions if they've got Teams open so they can follow along? Okay, we've got some thumbs up. Okay, not a lot of thumbs up, but some thumbs up. Okay. Okay, yeah, sorry, apologies, Bridget, the Mac does look a bit different. Unfortunately, the Microsoft version for Macs tends to have a bit less capability than a Windows machine. The online versions should be the same, but the desktop version will look a bit different. So apologies, Bridget, for that. Okay, well, let's keep on going and hopefully people are able to follow on. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so to create a team, and if you can, we'll just create a team and that way we can play around a bit. You can click join or create team. And the one we want is that create team down the bottom here. And then you've got the option of 4 different teams you can create. So if you're using this with students, even if you're not using it as a LMS, and lots of people were undecided as yet for that, we suggest you use class. So even if you've set up teams for class meetings, for example, maybe set up your team as a class, even if you're not going to use all the functions. It's very tempting to do PLC or staff. However, we now suggest you don't pick either of those 2 because they're quite restricted in the way they're set up. So if you're not using students, the one to pick is the other. So if you are following along and you've got Teams open, if you click on other, you need to enter in a team name. So I'm just going to call it Test Jan. And you don't need to worry about the description. The privacy. Now this bit is important. If you click there and make it public, that means that anyone in the Department for Education can find that team. Now that includes students. We have had some trouble with students finding teams and then posting very inappropriate comments and photos to teams. So please in general, keep it as private and then send a link or invite other people into your team if you want to share it. Okay, so we're just going to click next. Now you can add people straight away. I'm just going to skip this step. And then I've got my team open. Now teams last for 12 months. So if you created a team around the beginning of last year, you should get an email from Microsoft asking if you still want the team to be open. So don't ignore that email, otherwise you might find your teams deleted. If you do miss the email, for example, you can request through the service desk for that team to be re-established, refound. However, you'll need to give them quite detailed information so that they can find that team. So that's the other thing. When you're naming a team, think about how you're going to make it easily identifiable for your students, your staff, and also if you need to get it restored to the ICT services desk. So we suggest that maybe you start the name of your team with your school number, your 4-digit school number. That way, if you do need a team to be restored, the service desk can easily find it. So you could put in your school number and then your name and the year of the class you're teaching. Okay, the other thing about teams, I mentioned earlier with OneDrive. No, I didn't even show you OneDrive. Okay, so OneDrive, which we didn't see earlier, is the space where we should be saving files that are personal work files, and that's our me space. However, if we are working with lots of colleagues, we suggest instead of saving files in OneDrive and sharing them with colleagues in OneDrive, that you create a team and put your files in that team. That's because if you leave the department, your OneDrive after 30 days will disappear. However, if you're a member of a team, any files that you've saved in that team will still be accessible to everybody in the team after if you leave the department. So the other thing about a team that's really good practice is having at least 2 owners. So if you've followed along with me so far and we've just created a team, we've just got 1 owner. If you can find a second owner for that team, that way if something happens to you, there's another person that can go in and change the settings. Okay, so we will go in and have a look at adding members now. So on that home screen, those 3 dots, if we click them, you can go to Manage Team. And in here, we've got access to all sorts of things. The first one is members and guests. So if I want to add someone, I'm going to click on Add Member. And Heidi from Galway, can I add you to my team? Can you give me a thumbs up if that's okay? Hopefully that is okay. No? Can someone put their hand up if they're happy for me to add them to this just test team? I will delete it afterwards. Thanks, Alish. Hopefully that's the right Alish. Yep, Alish Ling. Okay, so I'm adding Alish. So you could perhaps, if you're not doing this with another colleague next to you, you could perhaps pick your best teaching buddy and add them. I'm sure they won't mind. Okay. So now I've got another member in my team. You can notice that I can delete Alish if I've accidentally added her, or if I want to promote her to be a member, an owner, sorry, I can click that arrow next to member and put her up in owner. If you've got a class team, all your students will automatically come down here. So if you accidentally add a teacher as a student again, you just need to click on that little arrow down and promote them to an owner. Once they're an owner, you'll see that cross has disappeared. So you can't delete someone that's an owner. In order to get rid of them again, you need to put them back down as a member. Okay, now in here, I'm going to show you some settings as well. So let's go to the settings. There's a team picture, so I can go in here and I can change that picture. But the bit I want to show you is the member permissions. So this one's really important, especially if you have a team that's got lots of different members. So some of the things are about members deleting messages. So if you've got a team with students and the student team looks a little bit different, but you might want to think about ticking that allow members to delete their messages or edit their messages. The other one is the delete and restore channels. So for example, I was at a training with a school and they just got all their staff on and they labelled them in subject areas. And the staff just thought, oh, I'm not in that subject. I'm just going to delete that channel. So channels are the things down the side here, and I've only got general in this team. But when you click on the three dots and go manage channel, no, I can't do it in this one, but you can delete a channel from here, not the general channel. So they deleted all these channels and then they had to all be restored. So if in the settings, member permissions, you don't allow members to delete and restore channels, then that saves that headache of people accidentally deleting channels. The other one is this private channels one. So again, it's good if you untick that. The reason why is that if you allow anyone to create a private channel, then if you're not a member of that channel, you can't see that channel. So I'm just going to go into another team to just try and show you what I mean. So this is a class team. So it looks a little bit different, but you can see there's some padlocks here. That means they're private channels. So in this case, because this is my year 3 spelling channel, only my year 3s are in this channel. When a year 4 opens up this team, they don't even see that that channel exists. So if you allow members to make channels and you're not a member of that private channel, you won't see those channels appear. So that can be complicated. That can get complicated when if you're trying to delete the team or manage the team. Heather, you've got your hand up. Have you got a question?
No, I just put my hand up to join the team. That was fine.
Ah, sorry. Okay.
That's
Cool.
okay.
Do you want to click on that hand again, and then that will put it down, and I'll realise that you put your hand down. Okay, cool, excellent. I'm going to go back to my test team now that I've just created. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to create a channel as well, just so you know that. So there's the 3 dots here. I just go to add channel. That's where I can choose whether it's public or private. I'm just going to give it a name and add. And then you can see I've got 2 channels now in my team. Now there's a couple of things I'm going to show you here, which you can also do when you're using chat. So when you're chatting with your colleagues, and you can do it in a student team as well. So there's this new conversation down here. So if you were doing it in chat, it would be just a new chat. The first thing is you can just type something. Now, when you press enter, that sends automatically. So you might have had someone chatting with you and got really frustrated because they pressed enter and what should be one line ends up being lots of lines, and I can't type today by the looks of it. Let's delete that. Okay, so the first tip I'm going to show you is when you're typing, if you want to have more than one line, if you press Shift Enter, so now I'm pressing Shift Enter, that gives me a new line without sending a message. So now it's a 2-line text. So that's the first one. The next one, if you do new conversation, is there's a little A with pencil down the bottom. And if I click that, that gives me lots more editing options. So now I can press enter. Message, but it's sending straight away. And in fact, I actually have to add a subject if I'm doing a Teams post before I can send it. Okay, now the other one I want to show you, if I click on new conversation again, and that little A with the pen again, I've got an option here for new conversation, but if I click on that little arrow next to it, I can actually change that to an announcement. So if I want everyone in my team to really take notice of this thing that I'm posting, that's when I'd make an announcement. So I can just have a plain announcement, or I can go in and choose an illustration, or I can upload an image as well. And if I'm using Teams with students and I've created a class team, I might choose a different colour for a different type of announcement, like a class meeting or an assignment or something like this. Or if I'm using it for staff communication, I might always have my morning notices with the same announcement. Okay, now there's another couple of things I want to show you to do with tagging. So if you put an announcement, any member of that team can see it. They won't get a notification that there's been an announcement in that team. But if you use the @ symbol to tag them, so at least you're going to get a message. Elise will now get a little red 1 pop up next to her activity. If you want the whole team to know about this as well, if you do the @ symbol and then write team, and this works for a class team as well, your team will pop up. You can click on that. And then the whole team is going to get that little announcement in their activity. So if you're sending a message that's really important to all the members of your team, well, I've got someone sending me a message by the looks, that's going to pop up there like that. So that's tagging, and that's something to think about. Okay, so now just checking the sheet, and I think I've done most of the things. So if you are following along with the training summary, we're on to activity 3, which is the shared Word document. So what I might get everyone to do now is actually join this team that I've created. So I'm going to go into those three dots again and go to Manage Team. And I'm going to go into Settings, and I'm going to go to this thing called Team Code. And I'm going to click on Generate and Full Screen. So this here is a code. And if you can go into Teams, I can't show you because I've got the code up there, but if you go into the Teams, do you remember how we said create team, and there was another option next to it that said enter code? If you can enter this code, and I'll put it in the chat as well. If you can enter that, oh, it's going to be big in the chat. Let's try again. If I can, let's try clearing formatting for people. That's better. Okay, so if you can do that, then you can join this team. Let's have a look at members and see if we've got anyone joined. Excellent. So 12 people have managed to get in. The other way you can get people to join a team is a link. So I'll quickly show you that as well and post that in case you're having trouble with that team code. So the other way is that link. So I'm back in my teams now, and I'm going to my three dots, and I'm going to go get link to team and copy, and I'll paste that in to the chat as well. So that's the second way you can get people to join a team quickly. Okay, so I'm in my team. We're going to try and collaborate on a file. So just in my general channel, I've got my files tab, and I'm going to copy and paste a file across. Okay, now if people don't know how to find a file you've posted, you can also get a link to that file. So I'm going to go in and do copy link, and go copy, and then go back into my general channel, and I'm going to start a new conversation. This is an important one, so I'm going to go to announcement and add that link. Okay, so hopefully if you've managed to join that team, you can now see that post in my general channel. And if you can click on that file, it should open it up. And it should, fingers crossed, allow us all to have a look at that file. Show why it's not opening. It's opened it up in Word for me. I'm just going to go back and open it up in Teams instead. Yeah, bring it across. So this is my Word. I can see that there's 11, 13, 14, 15 people in here at the moment, and I can see some cursors. So some people have already taken up the initiative and typed in. Just be mindful that if you're using this with a class of students, you might get people typing over something that's already been, or where someone else is thinking about typing. So if I use this kind of thing with students, I would put in an extra column and put the students' names in there, or I might number those rows just so I don't get people typing over the top. But again, this is an example of how you might use Teams to collaborate for sharing a document. Right. Okay. So thank you everyone there who has added. We might just pop out of this because I'm aware of the time. If you do look at the training summary, we've just about covered everything, I think. We haven't looked at file history, but bearing in mind we've got 4 minutes, I might skip to the next steps bit to show you where you can get some more resources. If this has been a taster that set you on the path of wanting to know more. So we're just going to bring up my browser again. So first of all, there's our Teams Technology and Platform Adoption YouTube channel. So we've got a whole lot of videos that we've created. Lots of them are really short. So if I go into the Teams one, you'll see some are only like 20 seconds long, and they give you a really good taster of how to do one specific thing. As well, if there's anything that you want to know how to do and you can't find a video of it on our channel, please send us an email and we'd be happy to create something for you that's specific for your or for the Department of Education environment. So just pop our email in there. Feel free to email us. The other thing I'd all encourage you to do in Teams is we've got this Microsoft 365 app support and collaboration team. And if I go in and look at members, you'll see that there's over 1,400 teachers or staff, education staff in this team. So if you've ever got an issue or problem and you're a member of this team, if I click on Teams again, you'll see people put in questions and someone, either a member in my team or another teacher or SSO or someone in the department will answer your question. So that's a really good resource as well. And I'll put the link to that team in the chat as well. So feel free to join that. There's also the Microsoft Education Centre. Now this was education.microsoft.com and it's just moved across to a new home called Microsoft Learn. If you did have your registration in the old education.microsoft Centre, all your profile will move across. So I think it's still being moved across at the moment, but it will move across. But in here, there's a whole lot of resources and online learning that you can do that's self-paced as well. So that's a really good place. And I've got the wrong link there. I'll just have to copy and paste this one in. So that's there for you to do more training as well. Zambika, after this has finished, it will download and then I'll email the link out to everyone. I'll go in and I'll blur out people's names so that that's not showing, but I will email the recording out. Okay, the other thing I will just plug is my team's newsletter. So if you want to find out a bit more about what the department's doing and how we're supporting teachers and more training opportunities, feel free to join our newsletter as well. And lastly, so you can get a certificate for this training session. I'll just put a link to our form. It asks you for feedback and we really do take your feedback seriously. So if you could fill out that last form that I've pasted in, that would generate a certificate for this training. There are some more training sessions that I'm running this week and next week, so feel free to join those as well. Any further questions? Please feel free to come off mute. I'm happy to stick around for a little bit longer, but feel free to leave as well if you don't want to hang around, and hopefully you found this useful.